Hello, Neogenians. Welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. Today we're talking about the truth about Jesus Christ's second coming, how it's not what you think, as we explore the book of Revelation. It's going to be really good. Now, I grew up as a Christian. I'm an ex-Christian now, thankfully, but the book of Revelation is an absolutely terrifying book. And it doesn't really fit with the New Testament. It seems like something you'd find more in the Old Testament. So we're going to be breaking this down, taking a look and see why the book of Revelation is like this, what it really means, and the truth about the second coming of Jesus. So we're going to get started right away. But as always, please hit the like button. My channel is about bringing a higher awareness to humanity so that we can build a new earth right here and right now. And so when you spread information, it helps become a catalyst to people's awakening consciousness. So when you hit like, it helps by telling the algorithm to show this to more people. So take a second to hit it now. I appreciate it very much. Let's see. I also want to remind you that we are having a members only video after this called Does Time Actually Exist? If you want to be a part of that, become a member on Patreon or YouTube. You'll get access to all of our members only videos. There's a new video every single week. It's the best way to support my channel. Members also get access to our Discord community where you can be a part of the Nexus Academy, where we have weekly Neogenian presenters doing live study sessions on Neogenian topics. All right. One final announcement, and that is that my new book is out right now, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. Go check it out. You can find it on Amazon. The link is in the description of this video. And my second book, Meta-Rationalism, the New Science of Mind, it's all about unveiling the mathematical nature of reality, is available for pre-order right now on Amazon as well. The release date is July 11th. All right, let's get started, my friends. We're talking about the second coming of Christ. I was taught this, oh man, every day you hear people talking about the second coming of Christ. And I remember that we thought that the second coming of Christ was going to come during Y2K. Does anyone remember the whole Y2K scare? My family started stocking up on water and canned goods because we thought that basically everything was going to shut down, and it would be the start of Jesus Christ, it would be the start of the end times. So let's get started here. What we're going to do is take a look at the second coming of Christ and see how it's not really what you think it is, how it's been misinterpreted by Christianity, like so many other things. And I am going to be reading some excerpts from this fantastic article called What About the Second Coming by John Canis. And John Canis, this is on medium.com. So if you enjoy some of the content that I am reading, some of the excerpts that I read, go follow John Canis on medium.com. Go give him a follow. Okay. And I want to say I don't know much about John, but I skimmed this article a lot and I really like what he's doing because he is putting a positive interpretation on a lot of these scriptures that have been completely misinterpreted by the church. So let's see here. Let's begin. And so John says, the book of Revelation is a series of prophetic visions filled with mysteries about things to come. It includes several allegories with imaginary figures, such as the seven-headed dragon, the serpent, and the beast. Yeah, so there's all of these different, but here's the thing is that modern Christianity interprets a lot of these things as being literal. Not all of them. They see some of them as being visionary. But I was taught, for example, that at some point during the end times, the Antichrist is going to rise to power, that everyone has to get the mark of the beast on their hand or on their forehead. And if they don't, they're going to be unalived. And that demons would be roaming the earth and attacking people. And that, let's see, what else? Oh, yes, of course, all the Christians would just vanish in the blink of an eye and be sent up to heaven. So there's a lot of literalism in modern Christianity with the interpretation of Revelation, but some of these things, even in Christianity, are seen to be as visions, like the seven-headed dragon and things of that nature. So anyway, it's not a very happy book. And the thing to really keep in mind about this is think about how different the book of Revelation is compared to the New Testament. So the book of Revelation is the last book in the Bible. And the Bible is divided into two sections, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is awful. It's filled with the Creator God, Yahweh, doing countless atrocities. There's so much, I can't even say the things that are in there. There's unaliving, there's SA, there's sacrifice, it's horrible, very violent, as bad as you can possibly imagine. However, the New Testament is much better. The New Testament is where Jesus Christ comes along, and you get the Gospels. And I don't agree with everything in the New Testament. The Gospels are pretty good. They're decent. I like what Jesus has to say most of the time. It's mostly about loving your neighbor as yourself and spreading love and compassion and good morals and things of that nature. Pretty good stuff, not bad. However, not all of the New Testament is good. Later on, there are different apostles that say that women are lesser than men. They accept slavery. There's not great stuff in the New Testament still, but still better than the Old Testament. However, the book of Revelation is much different. The book of Revelation seems like something that you would find in the Old Testament. And that's what we're going to discover here as we continue to read. So in the book of Revelation, John says the predictions covers from the end of the world, the return of Jesus and all its power and splendor, the final judgment of the living and dead, the punishment of Satan, to predictions of a new reign of God in a new Jerusalem. The book of Revelation is commonly attributed to the disciple John. However, the attribution is doubtful given that the book was dated 95 CE. John is a very interesting character. I like John. So I don't believe a lot of these books were written by the people that they say they were. I think that they were written by different people. Which ones were actually written by the people they were named after and which ones weren't, I don't know. No one really knows, but I don't think that they were written. A lot of these weren't written by the people that say that they're authored. So, but John is associated, at least, with a lot of very interesting scriptures. So John is associated with the book of Revelation, which is all about visions of a coming future. He's also associated with the Gospel of John, which is by far one of the most interesting Gospels. And I'm going to do a video on it at one point because it's very different from the other Gospels. And it almost seems like it has Gnostic themes at times, and it can be interpreted in a Gnostic way. So that's also very interesting. John is associated with this very interesting gospel. And then, of course, in Gnosticism, there's the secret book of John, where, again, Jesus is revealing to John, instead of the end times, Jesus is revealing the beginning of the world and how the God of the Bible is actually evil and was created by an eon from a realm of divine light, and how the true way to salvation is understanding ourselves, and that we should oppose the evil creator God of the world, and the material world can be transcended, etc. So John's a very interesting character. Whether he wrote any of these books or not doesn't matter. Doubtful he wrote the book of Revelation, even more doubtful that he wrote the secret book of John. Did he write the Gospel of John? Maybe. We don't know. But nonetheless, his association, the character that's used in association with these books always has a very high degree of mystery and secrets being revealed. Very cool. So anyway, John does not believe that the book of Revelation was written by John, even though people say that it was. And he says that Revelation and the Gospel of John present two entirely different voices. They don't seem to be the work of the same author. They seem very different, essentially. And it's true. They are very different. The book of Revelation in general is extremely different from any of the books in the New Testament. Most of the New Testament, especially the Gospels, are all about loving your neighbor, unity. And the book of Revelation is extremely violent, like something you'd find in the Old Testament. So the culminating event of the allegories in Revelation is the return of Jesus. So now we get into the idea of the second coming of Christ, widely known by most Christians as the second coming. This vision is of a triumphant Jesus on a white horse, returning as the King of Kings, surrounded by the armies of heaven. So again, you're seeing a very warlike figure associated with Jesus. The white regal robe of Jesus is drenched in the blood of his victims. He is said to hold an allegorical sharp sword in his mouth. There is an anticipation of forceful punishments and violence in the air. Where is the Jesus of the New Testament who forgave his murderers a moment before his death on the cross? That Jesus is not present in the book of Revelation. And it's very true. It's very possible that the book of Revelation was written by people who wanted to see Jesus in a more warlike way, in a more Old Testament sort of fashion, because that's not the kind of Jesus that we got in the Gospels. So John continues by saying the big mystery of the second coming, as described in Revelation, is that no one knows when it will occur. It's been announced several times in history, and its prediction has justified multiple crusades. Everyone has been saying, oh, the second coming of Christ is right around the corner. Just, 30 years after Christ died, something like that. I don't know the exact time frame. But very soon after Christ died, people were like, oh, Jesus is coming back. He's going to come back anytime. I remember when I was, growing up, oh, Jesus is coming back any day now, especially Y2K. Oh, Y2K, that's going to be it. Then you had... It's just always, oh, Jesus is coming. Second coming is happening. So when is it? What's going on here? The common assumption is that Jesus would return to Jerusalem during every period of time when it was under Muslim control. Christians worried that it would interfere with the return of Jesus. Yeah, it's also one of the reasons why evangelicals in modern times have been so supportive of Israel to prevent a return to the past when Jerusalem, and that's a very difficult word for me to say apparently, when Jerusalem was controlled by Muslims. In the meantime, the prediction of Revelation has not materialized. So, okay, I'm not about to get into political topics on this video, but I just want you to note how destructive religion is, because that is absolutely true. Christians often support things that are extremely damaging and destructive in the Middle East because of this idea that the Bible says things should go a certain way. And it's really sad when we see all this unaliving, all this destruction, all this loss of life happening every day at unprecedented scales. And so much of it is rooted in religion. So much in it is rooted in ideologies that are supposed to be about peace, supposed to be about bringing us together, supposed to be about love. And yet it creates more destruction and death than, any weapon could. It's horrible. Anyway, that's not the topic of this video, but that's an important point. In much of the Bible, John continues, stories like this illustrate a hidden truth. So we're talking about now, John says that the second coming has an esoteric meaning. So we're going to look at the esoteric meaning of the second coming. What does esoteric mean? Esoteric means hidden. That's what esoteric means. So there's a hidden meaning of the second coming. What does exoteric mean? Exoteric means revealed. There's exoteric religion and there's esoteric religion. Exoteric are stories that people believe in a literal fashion. Esoteric is about interpreting those stories to find the hidden meaning behind them. And so what is the hidden meaning behind the second coming? John says, throughout history, those who have read the Bible literally have been awaiting the return of their Savior. The wait is tormented by fears because of the violence of the narrative in Revelation. There is also the anxiety of how they will be judged. I grew up in this mindset. I was a Christian. I was terrified by the events described in Revelation. And so he's absolutely right. When you take a literalist interpretation, you are literally waiting for the return of Jesus and are terrified by the narrative of Revelation. But John continues by saying, however, as with all allegories, the second coming is not meant to be taken literally. So now here is where John, and by the way, I think this is a little confusing because we're talking about the book of Revelation, which was supposedly written by John, and then the author of this article's name is John. So when I'm saying John continues, I'm talking about the author, not the disciple. I'll say John C. His name is John Canis. So I'll say John C. to make it a little more clear and realize that could be a little confusing. So what does John C. think is the hidden, secret, true meaning behind the second coming of Christ. He says the return of Jesus is not a collective event, but an individual one. It does not take place in space and time, but rather in consciousness. And this aligns extremely well with what Jesus says in the Gospel of Thomas, a Gnostic gospel that was excluded from the Bible, banned by the church, where Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is not in the sky, it's not in the sea. Where is it? It's inside you and all around you. It's a state of mind, it's a state of consciousness. So John C. says the return of Jesus is not a collective event, but an individual one. It does not take place in space and time, but rather in consciousness. So what is this talking about? What essentially this means is that, so who was Jesus? We don't know for sure. We don't know if Jesus actually existed or not. I believe he probably did. If Jesus Christ did exist, he most certainly did not do those miracles that are described in the Bible. Who Christ most likely was a highly enlightened individual who achieved a higher state of consciousness, understood what he was, where he was, and why he was here, and wanted to communicate that idea to others so that they would understand what he understands and become like him. This is why in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, anyone who drinks from my mouth will become me, and I will become them. Now, of course, that sounds a little weird, but that's why you're not supposed to take these stories literally. You're not actually supposed to drink from Jesus. Drinking from Christ's mouth means understanding the truth, the spiritual truth, the nurturing essence behind what he is saying. Drinking from his mouth is understanding what he is saying. When you understand what he is saying, your consciousness will be raised and you will become like him. You will become like God. You will realize that you are divine and he will become like you. That gets just a little more complicated because now we're talking about a state where we understand all of us to be reflections of each other in an interconnected system. So, according to John C., the return is not a collective event, but an individual of one that doesn't take place in space and time, but in consciousness. Is that right? That is absolutely right. Now, there's some key details to unravel here, though. So it does have to do with a collective event, but not a collective event in terms of Jesus Christ coming down from the clouds or something like that. But it is a collective event in that it is collective in that many individuals are beginning to reach this higher state of consciousness. So when we talk about the second coming of Christ, the second coming of Christ is the return of a new consciousness. So basically it's like this. When Christ, let's take for granted that Christ actually existed as an enlightened human. When Christ existed as a human, that new consciousness was on earth. The second coming of Christ is the second coming of that consciousness, but instead of it happening through one person, it's happening through many individuals. So that's why I say I agree that it's an individual event, but it's also a collective event, and I'm sure that John C. would agree with this as well. It's just a matter of what words you choose to communicate this idea. But we are collectively the second coming of Christ. We are the emergence of a new consciousness right here, right now, as a collective. And we are continuing the work of Christ. What was Christ trying to do? Get others to realize this. And we are continuing that by trying to get others to realize what they are so their consciousness can be raised. Do you see the irony here is that obviously we are Neogenians and we have specific ideas about reality and things of that nature, but we are more Christian than Christians are. Christianity is a false light. Christianity keeps humanity divided and in a low state of consciousness. Christianity is filled with false prophets. What Christianity is a perversion of what Christ taught. And so what we are is that second coming of that consciousness right here and right now, where we come together and help others reach that as well. So it's an individual event and a collective event. because they're tied together. And so John C. says, the return of Jesus is not a return in the flesh. It is the return of the Christ spirit within the soul. What does that mean, this Christ spirit within the soul? Well, you know, in the Neogenian system, what is the soul? A zeta. It's a system of frequencies. It's you as an eternal mind. This isn't the physical reality. This is a mental reality, and we are not these bodies. These bodies are just avatars. What we truly are eternal souls or eternal minds, which are systems of frequency patterns. So to say the return of the Christ spirit within, to say it is the return of the Christ spirit within the soul means it is the reaching of a new consciousness within the mind. It is an event in the consciousness of each individual, John C. says. It is not a return as much as it is a remembrance, the remembrance of our true spiritual nature of being in the image and likeness of God. The understanding that, in other words, the understanding that we are divine. It was Plato who said that all learning is actually remembering. It's uncovering what is already there. It's piercing the veil and discovering what one truly is. Know thyself. Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods, because you are the universe and the gods. For thousands and thousands of years, those who have reached a higher state have been telling humanity, know thyself is the answer to everything. And they do everything else other than that. Oh, you mean worship a god? No. Know thyself. Oh, you mean look to the universe for guidance? No. Know thyself. Oh, you mean go, consult my astrological chart? No. Know thyself. Oh, you mean have faith that science will figure everything out in terms of empirical testing and materialism? No, know thyself. Know thyself, and you will understand what you are. And that's exactly what Christ says in the Gospel of Thomas. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus Christ says, when you know yourself, you will understand that you are sons of the living Father. The Son of God. You are the sons of God. Jesus was the Son of God. We are the sons of God. In terms of meaning, and this is not a gendered thing. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, non-binary, gender fluid. It's just a way of communicating an idea. We are all emanations from a singular source. We are a network mind come together as a singular system. John C. says we become so hypnotized by the material world that we either dismiss the idea of our spiritual nature, cannot absorb the enormity of our true spiritual nature as children of God, or simply forget that fundamental truth. What are the three major things keeping humanity from realizing the truth of what they are, realizing that they are divine, reaching that higher state of consciousness, whether you want to call it Christ consciousness or what we in the Neogenian system call all awareness, eventually reaching hyper awareness? What are the three things stopping people from realizing that? Mainstream religion is the major one. Then is scientific materialism. Then is capitalist political systems and the rich elite oligarchy. Why? Why is this the case? Because mainstream religion rips your divinity away by saying you are not divine. Divinity is an external being that you must worship. You are inherently dirty, sinful, and flawed. It takes your divinity away. Scientific materialism says you're nothing but dead, lifeless atoms destined to decay and be nothing in the dust. You're just a random accident. It removes the fact that you are the ground, eternal ground of reality on which all else depends. Everything depends on us for its existence. We depend on nothing for our existence. We are eternal. Everything depends on us for its existence. That's why this is our kingdom. That's why the kingdom of heaven is ours. It's right here and right now. This universe is our kingdom. We just have to realize it, like Christ says in the Gospel of Thomas, one of my favorites. Recognize what is right in front of you. Recognize what is right in front of you. What does that mean? It's like being in a dream and you're trying to have someone else become lucid. Look, it's a dream. Look around you. Just recognize what's right in front of you. That's what Jesus Christ was saying. Recognize what's right in front of you. The kingdom of heaven is right here, right now, in front of you. It's a state of mind and can be created right here. This is our kingdom to rule. John C. says, this regained awareness of our spiritual identity as the Christ Spirit is, in my belief, the esoteric meaning of the second coming. It happens on an individual timetable when we are ready. It's not in the experience then in another. So what John C. is basically saying is that the second coming of Christ happens whenever someone reaches that state of consciousness. So according to John C., it's not Jesus coming down from the clouds 20 years from now, 10 years from now, tomorrow. It happens for each individual when they attain that new state of consciousness. So could have happened to someone 5 years ago, could happen to another person today, could happen to another person weeks from now. And according to John C., the second coming of Christ is an individual event that happens in a person's consciousness when they reach a new state of consciousness. Now, I like this interpretation a lot. My interpretation is very similar to that, except I do believe it is also a collective event. So John C. is saying that it's an individual event. It's something that occurs when people reach a new state of consciousness. And I agree with this. However, we're reaching a point where this is happening on a collective scale, and we are consciously putting in the effort to expand that awareness so it encompasses the planet. It encompasses the planetary consciousness together as a collective. So I like John's interpretation a lot. It's a great one. However, like I said, mine's a little different. Entails what he says, but also brings it to the collective as well, in that we are the second coming of Christ right here, right now. And consciously realize that and understand it. That's a powerful idea. Because we have to remember, it's not about waiting for some savior in the sky. The creation of a new world, new humanity, and a new consciousness is up to us. We are the catalysts of the new beginning. It's up to us to do it right here and right now. So what do you do? What do you do? How can you do it? Well, the first thing is that it has to happen to you on an individual scale. If it hasn't yet, if you don't quite really understand what we talk about here or whatnot, that's fine. That's totally fine. Take the time to understand yourself. Know thyself. Then once you do, you can begin to help others. Be a catalyst, be a spark in the flame of consciousness in someone else's mind. So John C. writes, Jesus said, "Call no man on earth your father, for one is your Father, which is in heaven." And this is in Matthew 23:9. And John C. says, this statement clearly announces that we are all children of God and also brothers and sisters. Isn't that, when you understand that when Jesus Christ is saying, you are the sons of God, you are the sons of God, you are the sons of God, this has been so watered down and misapplied by mainstream Christianity today. Christianity now thinking, oh, we're the children of God just means like, oh, we're Christians. We accepted Jesus into our hearts, so we're the children of God. It's almost like, because they don't believe that they can reach divinity. Modern Christianity is not about reaching divinity. Modern Christianity, for those who don't know, modern Christianity says you are inherently dirty, sinful, and flawed and broken. You are a mess. You are the worst. It is only through salvation and belief in Jesus Christ that, oh, okay, well, Jesus Christ washes away your sins and your imperfections. And now you can have a relationship with the divine. You're not divine. You will never be divine, but you can have a relationship with Jesus. You can have a relationship with God. So Christianity has really watered down the message of being the sons of God as meaning being a divine emanation from the source of all reality to, oh, we believe in Jesus, so it's like we're the sons of God. No, that's not what it's about. It's about recognizing your true divine essence. John C. continues and says, therefore, when Jesus said, I and the Father are one, he wasn't talking about a unique relationship applicable only to himself, either as a man or as a God. Jesus was referring to the part of all of us that is spiritual, the part of us that truly exists in the image and likeness of God. So when Jesus says, I and the Father are one, that means that this isn't a unique, this applies to all of us. I and the Father are one. You and the Father are one. You don't even have to use the word Father. You don't even have to use the word God. You can say absolute. The essence of reality, the ground of existence. You are the essence of reality. You are the ground of existence. You want to know why science can't explain consciousness? You want to know why science can't explain how sentience arose from dead matter? Because it's eternal. Sentience, subjectivity, the ability for you to have an experience is eternal. It can't be created. It can't be destroyed. It is the internal aspect of energy. It can never be created or destroyed, only transformed. You have different kinds of experiences. But you as a subjective mind are eternal. And everything depends on its existence, depends on you and all of us for its existence. And if you want to know how, think of a dream. Can your dream exist without you? Of course not. Your dream can't exist without you. Your dream depends on you for its existence. This reality is a collective dream, and it depends on us for its existence. Do you see what the importance of this message? And how this should really be square one. This should be obvious. We're in this vast playing field that we have generated for ourselves so that we can understand each other, have experiences together to create a brilliant world of knowledge and understanding and fun and pleasure and entertainment, all the things that we want to do to learn and grow, explore. It's all right here. This is our own virtual world that we can do whatever we want with because it's literally made from our fundamental frequency patterns. But what are people doing? They're unaliving each other left and right for the stupidest of reasons, for the dumbest of reasons. This is not the experience that is intended for us. But as soon as we explicitly realize that, hey, we're the gods, we don't have to kill each other because of the fake gods that we've invented. When we realize that we are the gods, when we stop thinking, oh, heaven is a place we go to when we die, if we please this certain deity and realize heaven is right here and right now because we are the deity, then we can finally start constructing the world in our image. And that's in the image of God because we are God. We will construct the kingdom of heaven right here and right now. And this is how we will cure all the division, all the bloodshed, all the hatred, is by understanding that we're one, we're united, we're together, we're individuals within a collective that forms a network, and we're all reflections of each other that allow us to see our divine selves from different perspectives. And by the way, for anyone who is new here, I know that we're talking about the second coming of Christ. So I'm talking in terms of things like God and the soul and the spirit, etc. But remember, the Neogenian system is all about logic and reason. And we talk about things in terms of frequency patterns, mathematical terms, space-time functions, and philosophy and reason and logic. A lot of these words that we're using right now are allegories, and that should be understood. I just want to make that clear. We're not about, faith, or obviously we don't literally believe that we are, like gods as how described in the Bible. We are the eternal ground and essence of existence because of our true mathematical nature as beings of frequency. And so everything depends on us for its existence because we are the necessary element of reality and everything else is contingent. So to understand this, take the terms necessary and contingent, for example. There's two kinds of existence. There's contingent existence and there's necessary existence. Contingent existence is something that exists, but it could be the case that it didn't exist or doesn't exist. For example, think about Earth. Earth does exist, but it's contingent because it's possible that you can imagine a universe where Earth didn't exist. You can imagine a scenario where Earth didn't exist. Take America, for example. America is also contingent. America exists, but you could imagine an alternate history where it didn't. A house, the apartment I'm living in right now, that is contingent. It exists, but it doesn't exist. It doesn't have to have existed. And to identify contingent things rely on other things for their existence. So my apartment relies on wood and nails and a particular space and people to construct it. It relies on something for its existence. Contingent things rely on things for their existence, and it's possible that they may not have existed, but they do. The other kind of existence is necessary existence, and necessary existence are those things that have to exist. They must exist. It would be impossible for them not to exist. And a way to identify things that are necessary is that things that are necessary, when you deny them, result in a logical contradiction. So, for example, contingent things, denying them does not result in a logical contradiction. If you say, my apartment exists, right? If I say, my apartment does not exist, well, that's not a true statement, but it's not a logical contradiction. It's not true. My apartment does exist. But if I say my apartment does not exist, it doesn't break the rules of logic. Necessary things. What's an example of something that's necessary? The laws of mathematics. 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 = 4. If you deny 2 + 2, if you say 2 + 2 does not equal 4, you have a logical inconsistency. It is impossible. It breaks the rules of logic. It results in a contradiction. So mathematics is something that also does not depend on anything else for its existence other than itself. For mathematics to exist, it only relies on its own internal consistent structure. It's all self-reliant. It's all self-contained. It doesn't require bricks or nails or a space. Everything that mathematics needs is contained within itself, within its own very structure and its own very definitions. So mathematics is something that is a necessary existence. You and me and all of us and subjectivity are necessary existences. Now, it would take, obviously, I don't have enough time to explain exactly how that is the case, but that's in my upcoming book, Meta-Rationalism, The New Science of Mind, that will be available on July 11th. You can pre-order it now on Amazon, but it goes into detail, pages and pages and pages. I'm just saying I don't have enough time. But you can understand just in a basic way how we saw that the laws of mathematics are necessary. We are mathematical beings, and thus our existence is necessary. Everything else other than that which is necessary, which is us, which is the ground of existence, is contingent. And what does it depend on? It depends on us for its existence. So just like a house requires bricks and nails and wood and a space, all of physical reality, what does it require? The energy, the frequency functions that are contained within us. So a house requires bricks. A physical reality requires frequencies. We are beings of frequency. Reality is contingent upon us as necessary beings. Not reality, but physical reality is contingent upon us as necessary beings. That's how we're gods. Not like the fairy tales in the Bible. So John C. says the truth of our spiritual identity is universal. It applies to all humans. We all share the sense of I as our true selfhood. Then when we speak of ourselves, we all use the same name, I. So when Jesus says, I and my Father are one, he is expressing truth of identity that applies to everyone, whether we know it or not, which is really cool. This is a cool thing that John is saying. He's talking about basically in philosophy, the idea of universals. So I'm saying, do I have enough time to talk about this? We just talked about necessary and contingent. Now the universals in particular. So universals are things that apply to everything. It's universal. So when John C. says the I is universal, it's like this. We are all particular beings. My name is Morgue or Morgan. Your name is, the authors of this is named John C. You know, your name is Elizabeth or whatever. But each one of us, even though we have particular names, say I. I say, I am going to the store today. John C. says, I am going to the store today. Elizabeth says, I am going to the store today. You say, I am going to the store today. So likewise, John is saying when Jesus says, I and my Father are one, he's expressing the truth of identity. That essentially all eyes are one with the God, with the Father, whether they know it or not. And it is about that remembrance of what we are. Because it's not we are all eternal. It's just about remembering that we are, understanding that we are. When I say remembering, I don't mean like suddenly, oh, you're going to have a flash and all these memories are going to come flooding into your mind of being in this realm of light. That could happen, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an understanding of it. A realization. It doesn't have to be this Damascus Road experience. For some people it is, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a understanding, coming to a revelation. The hidden meaning, John C. continues by saying, the hidden meaning of the second coming is the complete unfolding of the conscious awareness of our true spiritual self. It occurs when we push our ego to the side and allow the Christ spirit within us to take hold of our lives. So when we have to be careful here, though, because we're not thinking in terms of Christianity, this Christ spirit is a new consciousness that is allowing us to have a new perspective that transcends the ego. Well, as always, there's nothing wrong with the ego. The ego is a very important tool. But all awareness allows us to transcend the ego. It's the creation of a new structure in the psyche known as the analog all. The analog all is about understanding reality as a unity and understanding our place within reality and as reality as a unity. So self-awareness is about I, separation, separation, separation. I am me, you are you. I am not this, I am this. All awareness is about seeing how everything connects and goes, I am connected to you. You are connected to me. We are connected to the environment. This entire environment is literally built from our essence. This is all us. Just like when you go to sleep and dream and your dream is all you, that's all you. Everything around you is you, just expressed in a certain way that seems external. Understanding that all of this around us right now is just us, but externally projected, still an internal experience, but externally projected, is what's known as the great work, the unification of subject and object. Realizing that subject and object are the same. How is subject and object the same? Well, when you go to sleep and dream, that which seems like an object is part of you as a subject. All of these things which seem like objects, they seem like they're out there, are not really out there. They're collectively in here. John C. says, the critical understanding of the meaning of I and the Father are one went by the wayside when the 4th century bishops, under political pressure from the Roman emperors, ratified the concept of the Trinity, effectively deifying Jesus. So this got completely changed by modern Christianity. Back then, it was because of bishops under pressure from the Roman emperor. With the concept of the Trinity, the bishops separated Jesus from his own humanity as well as ours. This was contrary to Jesus' intent to make us aware of our spiritual self, which he fully expressed and revealed for all to see. Mainstream Christianity still suffers from having created this barrier between Jesus and humanity. Isn't that ironic? Mainstream Christianity is all about, oh, this relationship with Jesus. Yet what they have done is created a barrier between Jesus and humanity by saying that Jesus is beyond humanity, that we can only hope to have a relationship with Jesus. That's not true. We can become Christ. And Christ isn't the figure to be worshipped. Christ was an enlightened individual. We're using him as an archetype right now to represent a certain idea. We don't have to use Christ. We could use a different example. We could use a different archetype. We could talk about Buddha. We could talk about Lucifer. We could talk about Prometheus. We could talk about any of these archetypes. We could talk about Sophia. We don't have to be talking in terms of Jesus, but this is the particular set of archetypal symbols that we're using right now. And Jesus as a man was just a man. He was most likely a highly enlightened man. But then a lot of the Gnostics believed he was just a guy, a very smart guy, but just a person. Particularly the Carpocratians and the Marcionites, they would have an image of Jesus next to an image of many different philosophers like Plato and Socrates, Pythagoras. And they believed that one could become as enlightened as Christ. And if they worked hard enough, you could become even more enlightened than Christ. And guess what? If Christ was alive right now, he'd be telling you the exact same thing. He'd be like, hell yeah, you can become more enlightened than me. Please do. Because any enlightened teacher, any true teacher, doesn't even have to be any teacher of any kind that is a quality teacher, wants nothing more than their student to surpass them. Be a terrible teacher if they were like, no, you know what? I'm the best. I'm the best teacher. You can't, no, you will never be like me. You will never surpass me. You are merely my student. No. Any teacher worth their salt wants their student to become better than them. And so if Christ was around today, he'd be saying, yeah, of course you can become more enlightened than me. Of course you can be more conscious than me. You should be trying to do that. John C. says the mission of Jesus was to show humanity the way out of its erroneous ways, not because he was a God, but because he was a man who had reached such a high state of consciousness. However, that message would not have pleased the bishops and the Roman emperors. I'm looking at the time here. There is a lot to go in here. What I also wanted to get into today, and I'm looking, do we have enough time to get in it? In addition to talking about the second coming of Christ, I wanted to talk about how the difference between the book of Revelation and the rest of the books of the Bible, and how Revelation is why it's so different, why it's so violent, why it's so crazy compared to everything else in the New Testament, when it seems a lot more Old Testament influenced. I don't think that we will have enough time to get to that today, but we'll talk about that in another time. But the main essence here, because John says there's a big disconnect in the God concept evolution as we go from the Gospels and the letters of the New Testament to the book of Revelation. Although Revelation is theoretically and logistically part of the New Testament, we neither encounter the God of Jesus nor the Jesus that we encounter in John. Conceptually, Revelation read literally is not an extension of the message of Jesus. So basically, John C. is saying Revelation only makes sense if you understand it allegorically, as a metaphor, because literally, it's very contrary to the ideas that Jesus Christ was trying to get across. The Revelation is a lot like Old Testament. It's very much about Jesus Christ as this warrior, and the sinners being judged, and Jesus Christ was about judge not, yes, lest ye be judged. So it's important to understand these, like most of the stories in the Bible, as being allegorical. And John C. says, with a new awareness of the esoteric or hidden meaning of the second coming, we can stop the fears and worries about the literal meaning of Revelation. Instead, we can smile at the whole story and enjoy the emergence of the great impulse of love and peace and of Jesus. So I think that look, I grew up I'm an ex-Christian. I'm not a huge fan of certain terms, like, talking in terms of God and Christ and the soul, etc. But it's totally fine. But religion is a huge problem in this world. But so how do we solve the problem of religion? We can't get rid of religion. That's impossible. You cannot do it. It's not possible. You can't just poof, get rid of it. That's not how it works. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. So we have to transform religion. We have to have it reach its next step, where imagine Christianity interpreted this way, like how John interprets it. Imagine a Christianity interpreted how Jesus actually intended. Well, then we would realize that we're all one. And we can do that with every religion. We can realize that the underlying message, that first of all, it shouldn't be taken literally. This is what we need to do. First of all, it shouldn't be taken literally. It should be taken allegorically and metaphorically and as parables. It should be recognized that we're all talking about the same thing. We're just using different words to talk about it. And anything that is outdated and backwards and hateful and sexist and homophobic should just be outright rejected and be like, you know what? No, that was a product of its times and it has no place in the modern world. This is what we need to do. We need to have religions come together by understanding the underlying unity that they're actually expressing, but people are too blind to see that. And so at another point, I think in another video, we'll talk more about the book of Revelation, because there's a lot to the book of Revelation. Like I said, it terrified me as a child. It's a very, very frightening book. But we can understand that the second coming of Christ, like John C. says, it's not about Christ coming from the sky. And I like this idea that John C. says, oh, it's something that happens within all of us when it happens. Could have happened to you 5 years ago. That was the second coming of Christ. Could happen to someone else 2 years from now. That for them, that was the second. In other words, the return of a new consciousness in them. And I like that idea. However, like I said, I believe this is also allegorically understood, not just as an individual event, but as a collective event. Because it's more than just, oh, I have this new awareness now. And wow, I think I see everything in a new light. That's great. No, it's about an engagement with the world as well. So did Jesus just go, oh, I understand all this stuff about myself. I'm just going to, that's great. I'm so enlightened now. No, he began to teach. He began to go out. He began to spread the word. And so the second coming of Christ is us as Christs spreading catalysts for a new awareness. And if you don't like all these religious words, I don't either. You don't have to use them. We're just talking in these terms right now because we're reading about, the allegorical interpretation of the second coming of Christ. All right. What we are those who have reached a new state of awareness and want to help others to do so as well. So we can create a teleocratic planetary civilization, a world built on purpose to maximize the quality of life for every individual and the collective. And that entails spreading knowledge, spreading information, spreading reason, spreading logic, spreading wisdom about what we are, where we are, and why we are here. So I hope you enjoyed this, my friends. Like I said, we'll do another video on Revelation in the future, but a lot of important stuff here. And I have a lot more videos on topics like this on my channel. Go check it out. As always, if you enjoy my work, make sure, well, first of all, like and subscribe. I don't even care if you like it. Just do it anyway. I'm just kidding. Well, not really. Just hit like anyway. But I want to remind you, if you do like my work and you want to help me create more content, consider becoming a member on YouTube or on Patreon. You'll get access to all of our members only videos. There's a new members only video every single week. And we're having a new members only video right now called What is Time? As we uncover the actuality of time. Does time actually exist? That's what we're talking about today. It's going to be good. We've been talking a lot about time lately. We're going to explore it even deeper today. So I also want to remind you, my new book is out right now, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. Go check it out. My second book, Meta-Rationalism, will be out on July 11th. It's available for pre-order right now. Thank you so much for joining me here today, my friends. Oh yeah, follow my podcast on Spotify too. Dawn of the New Earth, it's called on Spotify. It's a great way to listen to this stuff. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends. I'll see you all very soon. And I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, the Halloween Mom, DB, Nusalina, Eric, Christopher, Luke, Thomas, Ryan, Ian, and David. Thank you very much.